Hi guys, Kathy Colley here. I'm here to talk to you about the basic foundation you need before you do the baby steps of wealth building. It's called the four walls. And this is for all my single mom sisters out there and for all the working middle class families who are struggling living paycheck to paycheck. It can be really common to get your priorities out of whack and focus on paying your credit card bill first while your utility bill doesn't get paid and your lights get shut off. So focusing on the four walls really helps stabilize everything, and then you can begin to look up from survival mode and begin to strategize for your future. So as a single mom, I know the four walls are extremely important. And so let's dive right in. What are the four walls? The four walls are food, shelter, transportation, and utilities, with clothing put in there too. It's like, if you need shoes for your kids, you need shoes for your kids. That's a necessity. But most of us don't need a lot of clothing day to day, so that's kind of an occasional thing. Maybe it's like the fifth wall, or it's like the dormer window or whatever. It's like a little additional thing. So I want to talk about those four things that are so important for our basic financial foundation before we can even begin to save money, pay off debt, and begin to invest, buy properties, really build some wealth. So the first thing I want to talk about is food. And I can tell you, in my financial coaching business, I see over and over again, people are spending so much on food and they don't even know it until they start looking at the numbers. A lot of middle class families will sometimes come to me saying, we're spending $1,500 a month on food, and they make maybe $5,000. I mean, that's a huge percentage of their overall world. So it's recommended that you spend roughly 5 to 15% of your take-home pay on food. And there's lots of ways that you can do this. You can shop at the discount stores. I've done that, and I've been able to get really good deals even on organic food. You can meal plan. You can have a lot of rice and beans, simpler meals. Choose less expensive things to eat. Paying attention to the food is really important to keep your food costs in balance with the rest of your budget. So the second thing I want to talk about is shelter or housing. So a lot of people also overspend on their housing. It's incredible. Folks will say, oh, my mortgage is $2,000 and I bring home $4,000. Well, that's half of what they're bringing home. And no wonder they don't have any margin to save or to get anywhere. They just keep, dipping back into savings in order to pay their basic bills. So the recommended percentage for housing is 25% of your take-home pay. And again, there are lots of ways to manage this. If your housing is astronomical, consider downsizing. Even if you own a home where the mortgage is really high, I've known people to sell their home and downsize to either rent for a while until they can recover financially, or downsize so their mortgage is smaller and it's a smaller percentage of their overall picture. You can rent out a room. That's what I did to cut my rent in half and give me more margin. You can also find a way to make income from your home. Some people do Airbnb or have classes in their home. There's lots of different ways you can reduce your housing cost. So that's another piece of the pie. Transportation, it's recommended that you spend roughly 15% of your overall take-home pay on transportation. And then utilities, the same, 5 to 15%. So looking at your budget is the last piece that's really recommended, or the first piece that's going to help you figure out how much you're spending on all these things. When you do a monthly budget and you see how much each of your four walls are costing, you can see Are they costing more than you're bringing in? Are they costing less? What percentage of your overall take-home pay do they represent? And knowing that percentage is really going to let you know, which of these categories is way out of line. I do want to say one thing, that sometimes when people are in crisis, it's important to just get the basics handled with the money that you have. So, if you're a single mom who's just needs a safe place to stay, absolutely get whatever housing works for you. If you are, a married couple where both people have been unemployed, by all means, just, do whatever is required to keep a roof over your head and feeding your kids. We don't want to go into stringent budgeting when you're in crisis. So once the dust has settled, you have a roof over your head, you have food to eat, you have a way to get to work, transportation, and you have a way to keep the lights on and the water on, then you can start to more strategically budget around, where you want to see your money go for future saving and wealth building. But those are the basic 4: food, transportation, shelter, utilities. I kind of mixed up the order there, but you get the gist. And clothing, if you need clothing. And most of us can handle that at thrift shops if we absolutely need something and it's, and it doesn't work for the budget. So having your 4 walls in place is a blessing. So I encourage you to get organized with your 4 walls if you haven't already, to look at your budget and see what percentage each of those categories makes up of your take-home pay. And then you can begin to lift your eyes above survival and start to think about saving, paying off debt, and building some wealth. I'm excited for you. I'm Kathy Colley, and talk to you later.